started broadcasting.
Okay.
And I can't say tell them who we are, Bob, because Bob ain't here. He called in late and maybe not going to show up at all because he's off of making a living. And we're here done got our livings made, ain't we?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
This is R.L. Henson, and I'm not R.L. Henson. We're coming to you from beautiful, almost downtown La Follette, and we're trying to figure out what exactly to do next because we're just so proud to be here. We just don't know how to express it. Does that sound right or not?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm feel real good just to get to sit down for a few minutes without a steering wheel in front of me.
Well, you're going to have to quit stealing cars for a living.
Yeah, that's right. I think you might be right. Stealing cars may be more profitable than business.
No, it
if
is.
You're,
if there ain't as many people trying to put you out of business for stealing as they are trying to work.
Well, I learned a lesson about lineups. You know, where you identify somebody in a lineup.
Mm-hmm.
If you're out here dealing with a thief, and of course he's not going to stand there long, especially if things are getting hot and heavy.
I mean, like somebody shooting at him or something.
Well, let's say where there's weapons involved. You've got maybe 3 or 4 seconds to get a look, and of course then all you're going to see is rear ends and elbows. Now if they turn them guys around and instead of putting their face up there, show their rear part and their elbows, then you might could identify them. And especially if the lighting's a little bit bad, if it's getting late in the evening and stuff. But anyhow, that is, to me, from what I've seen, is practically impossible to identify someone if you're within 10 feet of them and the light's a little dim and they're already making tracks, and then you got them flashes everywhere. You know what I'm talking about? Them.
Yeah.
That flash kind of bothers your eyes a little bit. How do you identify someone?
If you can't shoot no better than that, you don't need to make them flashes.
There you go.
You'll be able to identify them with a hose.
Well, I don't know what counts, but anyhow,
I think we're overlawed and underprotected. Now, you catch a man out there stealing from you, you can't get him arrested. But if he happens to jump in the car and go busting down the road without his seatbelt on, they'll sure get him. Speaking, I heard an interesting theory today. I've been wondering about it. It just kind of made sense when somebody pointed this out. You know all these guys that have been causing problems going into these restaurants with these AK-47s hung across their shoulder and stuff, standing up for their Second Amendment rights to carry guns. And I've been wondering, what's the point in all that? You're just stirring up trouble. There ain't no use. I mean, if you need it, okay, but that's not the purpose of the Second Amendment. It's not to go scare people to death. It's to go take care of yourself. If they want to do that, what's this all about? It didn't make sense. Don't they know that just ain't no use in antagonizing people? These restaurants have agreed to let you keep your gun, and since it's private property, and most states allow them to say it's my place, you don't bring a gun. And I'm wondering why they want to provoke trouble. But I heard an interesting theory today.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Do you remember when the Tea Party, they'd have these Tea Party meetings and somebody'd show up with a bunch of rebel flags? Okay. And then that's the only thing you'd see on the news. These here right-wing radicals, these here bigots and racists out there waving these here rebel flags. And that's what's wrong with these people. It turned out that the people carrying the rebel flags were liberals going in to discredit the movement.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The theory is that these guys carrying these machine guns in these restaurants are going in there to discredit the movement.
I see what you're saying. It's sort of like a reverse psychology.
Yeah, and it does make sense.
Well, to me, I see no problem with carrying your weapon. To myself, I don't want to show the weapon. I mean, to carry it.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? To make it a point of it.
If you've got a business And you tell people, we want you to protect yourselves. We're not going to search you. We don't care what you got.
Right, as long as you got it concealed.
Well, concealed or not concealed, if
Yeah.
it's something you wear on you belt or something. But
Right.
whenever you're there running a restaurant and you got mama and 4 kids and a little old lady school teacher in there for breakfast and stuff, and here comes 7 big old hairy guys with an AK-47 hung across their shoulder, and I mean something big.
Yeah.
And you can't expect them people not to wonder what's going on. Nobody runs out there and tells them they got to take them home, but I can understand why these people in business don't want everybody else nervous over it.
Well, there's a lot of liability goes with having a weapon. I heard somewhere where somebody had dropped one and it discharged. There's more to it than just what meets the eye. There's lots of responsibility goes along with carrying a weapon and then the use of it and whatever. I do feel that we do need some legislation in favor. Well, let me go back at it in a different way. What politician out here you would think would deny you the right or say that you should have no right to protect your property? Do you think a politician would do that?
Nope. They won't protect. I didn't hear the first part. I was trying to get Jerry Kidd stirred up. I don't think politicians come out and protect me. Is that what you said?
No. Would a politician come out and say that you should not have the right to protect your property?
No, they won't come out and say you don't have the right, but they might not stand up for you doing it either.
Well, that's kind of is that a good way, hypocritical way of looking at things?
And that's the way you get elected. You're a politician. That's the only way you get elected, I think. You just tell whoever wants to hear something what you think they want to hear and hope you guessed right.
Well, I think it's a pretty well known fact that law enforcement cannot be everywhere all the time. And if you have a situation and you call for law enforcement, I heard that they've got some real good response times, like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and stuff like that. Do you know how far a thief can be in 3 minutes? Especially if he's traveling through.
Well, I know they say that whenever you need, when seconds count, police are only minutes away.
Well, this is
Is
correct.
that your point?
Well, the police, they do apprehend some people. I understand that. And I understand that some situations are far more or have priority over others. There's no doubt about that. But yet, if the citizen could have a little more leeway as far as detaining a thief.
Make a citizen's arrest. Just make sure your liability insurance is paid up.
Well,
False imprisonment, serious. It's much more serious than stealing and arson and burglary and.
What would be considered false imprisonment? In other words, you've got to determine what a person can be held for. Then,
Well,
right?
I got to read them their rights too. I didn't say read them the Riot Act. I said read them their rights.
Okay, now let's back up and look at something else. Why should everyone not be aware of their rights? Let's say we've got a thing called violation of the consent law.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
This is where
Implied consent.
Implied consent. Whenever you receive a driver's license, and this may apply to all states, but I know it applies to Tennessee. When you apply or receive a driver's license, you consent to being, I don't know what you would call it, tested for being under the influence while operating a vehicle. If you get stopped, whether you're intoxicated or under the influence, if you refuse to be tested,
crime.
it's a separate crime. It's a violation of the implied consent law. Okay? Why could this not apply to other situations. In other words, whenever you're arrested, or if you're driving or whatever, why could you have not already agreed that you understand your rights?
I think they ought to make a law that once you enter another man's property, you're allowed to be shot if he can prove you needed it.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, it's got to the point now, so people that own property have got so scared of being sued and stuff that they'll actually go out and help a thief load something so he won't hurt his back.
Yeah, or unloaded, either one.
Yeah, I've heard it happening.
I have too. There's some things that just get almost embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost embarrassing. But,
you know that 10 you'd help him load out there we got down at your place.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that where it came from?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't recognize that.
You want to start writing your name up, Steph.
Well, would that make any difference? I mean, a person.
Well, you'd know it when you saw it.
Well, yeah, you probably might recognize your own
I had a
property.
guy the other day wanting to know how you could identify stolen 2-4s. He said, how you going to tell what 2-4 belongs to him?
Yeah, this is true. Anyhow, I'm sure these politicians will be more than happy to jump on. They're always happy to jump on some sort of a cause to protect. I'm not going to say the innocent.
And I'm not going to say that either.
So, but they're always glad to
do
jump
anything
on.
will get them a vote. It don't even matter
Right.
what it is.
And a vote. Well, anyhow, what else would you like to do?
I don't know. You was
Discuss.
talking about bird dog there earlier.
Bird dog. Oh,
You know,
yeah.
bird dog. What's his name?
Yeah.
Bird dog. Bird dog.
Well, this is all over the news. So I guess the veterans thing is old news now, isn't it?
I'm sure it is.
Uh,
I think it may be worse this time than it was before, though. I think they're making a whole lot of them guys pretty mad twice.
well, from what I heard,
They go out there and get shot trying to bring home a traitor, and then they can't get to the doctor.
I understand that 6 other soldiers had lost their life trying to, I don't know what you call it, rescue or just locate this person.
You know, the only logical reason for our president, or your president anyway,
Well, don't.
the only logical reason for Obama to do the stuff he's doing is he is up front in his determination to strengthen the power of the presidency and diminish the power of the people, and he wants to set precedent for having done that to get people used to saying, well, ain't nothing we can do about it. The president done said we couldn't. And if we continue to let this stand, and they're going to, of course, but whether we could do anything about it or not, we should at least be talking of impeachment just to register our complaint for the next time it's going to happen, and it will surely happen again, because you never have anybody cede power. You have people seize power, but you never have anybody cede power.
Correct.
So you're not going to back up on the power of the president. Once he establishes this as common between him and his Justice Department, that it's okay for the president to rule by fiat, by executive order, then that'll be the way that things are done from now on until we have another revolution.
You know, I dread to see that come.
I do too, but I don't see any way to save this country short of a total financial collapse, which would indeed lead to a revolution.
The collapse part is we've actually collapsed already.
As
What we're doing.
As long as you print your own money, you can stay afloat for a while.
Well, that's the only thing that's keeping us afloat, is the fact that we're pumping this $1 trillion a year into our economy. There's not much being said about it now because it's been set automatically to where it automatically pumps this revenue in every month. And we're supposed to be cutting it back by about, is it about $100 billion a month now that we're supposed to be cutting back?
I don't know. But you know, we hear about this here income inequality and the fact that the Wall Street people are making a bunch of money and the Main Street people can't. I mean, the middle class is hurting, and everybody's going for less and less income and a lower standard of living, and the 1% is doing well. But now there's one reason for that to be happening right now, although I would argue the point against that anyway. But the reason that it is happening to the extent it's happening is because of government. They're pumping money into the 1%. They're not pumping it into the 99%. And another thing that's going on, you got to realize, is that there's nobody creating wealth. The only people that are getting ahead are the ones that are sucking off the government through special favors or kickbacks from the government or sweet deals from the government. It's the same from the county. Well, it's the same from the city, county, state, and federal government. He who has the most political clout rules. Now, these guys are not worried about the electric companies or the coal generation plants are going out of business, but the people that are pulling the strings, GE, is not going to worry about it. They're not going to sell any generators to them there coal-fired plants anyway. They've done got their deals worked out. The people that's in the nose done ready for this. They're looking for their competition to be put out of business by the government so they can benefit from what's left.
When we get off on energy and what you're talking about too, as far as the elected people, you can just look up and down this road here in this one little county, how many people who are seeking office. And to me, I don't see that many patriotic people. How many of these hundreds and hundreds that are running for office have you ever seen at a county commission voicing their disapproval of anything?
Nah, that's long as me too. That's all they interested in, me too.
Now, whenever we get back to energy, the president just handed down this new rule on reducing carbon by 30%. And I believe whenever we say carbon, about everything that we deal with has to do with carbon. I think everything's just about carbon based.
Every time you exhale, you're violating law now.
Yeah, that's right. And then they put dioxide on it. Of course, everybody knows that anything that's green, our trees and whatever consume it, they would not exist without it. But here, let me go back to another thing. We've got these national labs, I believe, but you know.
Well, you see, here's the calling me. Hello. Pretty good, pretty good. Well, we're doing a television show on the internet, but what can I do for you? Uh-huh. No, you can put it.
Folks, we got dead hours time right now for just a minute. So
there's an
bear with us, please.
How could I explain it to you? There's a pawn shop next door to me, and there's an island, a traffic island, immediately after that on my property. Yeah, the green grass growing out next to the road. And that is south of the first traffic island you come to, south of the pawn shop. You can put it there in that island, wouldn't hurt anybody.
Okay, alright, so that's the best place?
Yeah, that'll work.
What's the address of your place again?
1814
1814.
Jacksboro Pike, yeah.
Alright, man. Good talking to you, Ronnie.
Okay, see you. That was our associate, Weston Watt. Won't know where to put that sign.
There you go, Lee.
I noticed you had one up there on your equipment.
Yeah, we've had that machine sitting up there for a while for sale, and you know, there ain't nobody stole it yet. I wonder why.
And they start cutting it up if you
Would-
put it over there in the trees.
It might have something to do with the fact it weighs 52 tons. Maybe the reason
Well, I
they
tell
stole
you,
it.
if you put
But
it where
they'll
they can
steal
get
the parts
to it,
off of it.
and you get where they can get to it, they'll take torches
They'll
after it.
yeah, and cut it up. The
But help them load it.
yeah, I'll help them load it, get batteries or whatever. The I'll tell you what. Well, useless trivia. I've begun to have to design equipment in a manner to where that you can't get the batteries out without a great lot of difficulty. I've got one vehicle, a Mack truck, the batteries have been mounted back into the frame on the very front of it, behind the bumper. You've got to take the bumper off to get the batteries out of it. Well, I mean, this is what you got to do. So when you go out there to start it, the batteries ain't gone.
You may disagree with me, but I've found that one of the best deterrents is steel cable. It's harder to cut than
than chain. Yeah, sure is. We're using a cable on one. It's more or less of a passive to keep vehicles where a person goes, they have to go by foot or something like that. But when we was talking about energy, we have national labs around the country, and one of them here at Oak Ridge, of course. If there was a solution, a cheap, clean solution to energy, I feel one of these national labs would come up with it. Let's say like if there was a solar panel that could be small and power out untold amounts of energy.
If they ever get one that has efficiency above 15-20%, it'll be a miraculous thing.
Yeah.
You're talking efficiency of 1% or less right now. I mean, this is the silliest thing in the world to place your bets on solar energy. You would actually do better to have a solar stove and have a steam generator than you do with a solar panel.
Yeah. Well, what you would be better off, whenever you're talking about solar, actually, a chunk of wood is actually a means of solar.
It's stored solar energy.
Solar energy due to the fact that the tree has been grown due to solar energy. So, actually, a tree is solar energy. But anyhow,
I think if you're going to talk about natural energy, there's a lot more promise to tides,
right,
than there is with solar energy, which is another form of well, actually, it's gravitational energy is what it is,
right,
combined with solar. But that's predictable. You know what time the tide's coming in months in advance. And I know it don't look like much, but you've got a bunch of water that's coming up and it's running way up the bank and you ain't got much drop to it, but there's still ways to harness it. And one of the ways to harness it, and it's still not profitable to do it that way, but one of the ways to harness it is not to go in on the bank and try to put some sort of a generator because the fall is too short. You've got a lot of stuff, but it's going slowly. But you can put your generator out there on a pole out in the ocean, and when the tide comes in, it goes up. When the tide goes out, it goes down. Or you can do that with every wave.
With every wave.
And that makes a lot more sense, engineering-wise, than solar energy. The waves are unpredictable, but so is sunshine. But the tides are predictable, so you can figure on a baseline of a certain amount of energy generated just from the rise and fall of the tides.
Right.
Plus, you've got the added bonus energy of waves. It's still not efficient enough. I mean, it ain't going to compete with coal anytime in the next 200 years.
Well, coal, I did know what the efficiency factor was, but I've kind of, a lot of this stuff, I've kind of forgotten it as far as, it don't seem to interest anyone. I've seen some figures and numbers that make no sense to me, like how a ton of coal will produce 20 tons of carbon. And I've took out ashes before or whatever, and I've never figured out how they weigh carbon dioxide, because it's about the same weight as atmosphere. So I don't know. It's way out there. But
well, you can only get as efficient as a Carnot cycle, which is a theoretical heat engine, and you can determine the maximum possible efficiency of a fired generator by determining the differences in the cold side and the hot side of the generator, meaning after when the water comes in and how hot it is when it leaves, you can determine the greatest possible efficiency, and I'm going to say you're getting into probably You might be able to get into the 40 or 50% range. I think
That's-
I may be wrong, but
That's about what I was thinking. The nuclear is a consuming about 40% of what it produces in its own cooling and whatever else. So it consumes about 40%. So which leaves you 60%. And then if you figure that back into the way it's done now, it's done through uranium, which is mined, and it's you don't never see anything advertised about it. I've tried to hunt it up, look it up, search it. Up in Virginia is one of the highest grade uranium deposits in the United States.
where at?
Up in
I
Virginia,
didn't know that.
yeah, and well, they have put a moratorium on mining it until there can come up with some safe means by which to mine it. It's so potent that they
In other
there's
words, you
health
don't just
problems.
get it and pile it all up, huh?
Well, they do that in places. It's just like a quarry. They mine it, crush it, pile it up, and pour a certain kind of an acid type stuff on it, which creates that separates the uranium out of it, where you get your yellow cake, and it's just a runoff that they capture, and then process it and whatever. But you would think you would hear more of this. I wonder if the MSHA has anything to do with this.
The what?
MSHA, Mining Safe and Health Administration.
Oh, well, I'm sure they do. You're bound to.
Well, if this stuff is real hot, well, it looks to me like there would be more information on it.
Well,
And other countries, if I'm not mistaken, I think Australia has some rather potent uranium. I believe it is. My memory goes bad on me after a while. I look a lot of this stuff up, and I don't make notes of it. I just kind of try to remember what I can of it, and the processes and so forth.
well, I ain't doing no good finding that computed efficiency, so I ain't gonna fool with it. But
Well,
but it's one of the best engines we've ever built would be diesel or gasoline,
right.
and different types of that. You can go all the way from a Wankel engine to an old one-cylinder two-cycle.
Mm-hmm. Well,
But the efficiency of that it's a heat engine, and the efficiency of that is still, I'm going from memory, I'm going to say less than 50%.
well, I'm
Now, if you want to go back where you were talking earlier and go back to actually what energy is expended and getting
Right.
it ready to go in, then you probably drop it down around 20%. But if you want to look at solar panels and consider the whole cost of production, energy cost of
right.
production,
Transportation,
you're,
energy, and
you're
installation.
losing.
Yeah.
You're losing energy.
If it was a economic positive, people would do it without the TVA or whatever
That's absolutely true.
entering money into
That's the
it.
same reason that you see people out here picking up aluminum cans and going through a big effort to process them and to contain them and to haul them and to sell them. But you don't see many people out here picking up plastic bags.
Right.
I mean, you don't see anybody collecting them to sell, although they're recyclable.
Yeah.
They're not worth recycling. It actually takes more energy to recycle them than you save. It takes more resources to recycle them than you save. It don't aluminum. Aluminum, I mean, so we got the electrolysis method of aluminum separation. It was right up there with the price of gold.
Yeah. When we first got into it.
So
yeah.
they couple of graduate students back in the 1930s or something, I may be wrong on the time, they discovered how to use electrolysis to separate, and it's still, because of the cost of electricity, it's still an expensive process. So expensive that it's cheaper to recycle used aluminum than it is to extract new aluminum. Although there's an abundance of aluminum, it's the most, I think, the most abundant metal in the earth. And so there's plenty of it out there. We cannot effectively extract it from sand at all. We get it from bauxite, but if you could take it from sand, there's so much aluminum out there and aluminum silicate. Well, we could make everything out of aluminum if we could do it in an easy,
in an
efficient
economic manner.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Without a lot of byproducts that we couldn't use
Mm-hmm.
in consumption of energy.
Mm-hmm. But the bond in silica sand is so strong, it takes too much energy and too complicated to separate it.
Mm-hmm. For the percentage that you get out.
It's the same way with salt, NaCl. If you could find just a method just to zap it and suddenly you got sodium and chloride, you could manage to take that out of the oceans.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what you're going to do with all that sodium and chloride.
Well, you have to put it back in the ocean.
Yeah. If you could find a simple way to take the salt out of the oceans, then I mean it'd change the world.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, what do you think will happen at the end of whenever our election is over here locally?
You're going to be paying, brother.
We're going to be paying, aren't we?
Yep.
Yeah.
And everybody says that, but ain't nobody out there pinning down the candidates to see what they're going to do.
No. And the candidates are not saying nothing. Anything. Did you read Ann Hester's platform in last week's paper?
Well, I had it presented to me.
Okay.
I try not to patronize her.
Well,
I noticed she stole a lot of our ideas.
Well, no. What way we say that is she has kind of
she never
come to our
watches,
way of thinking on certain
She never
things.
watches any of our shows, but she seems to think the same way a lot.
Well, they ran a straw poll vote last night.
Okay, where at?
On the Campbell County issues or Gibson.
Gibson.
And she only had one vote that was against her. Some lady was down on her. I think I know who the lady was, but anyhow, but every vote from there on was for her, in favor of her being the county mayor.
Well, she couldn't get to first base.
Well, of course not. If she
And
ran on the platform,
she wouldn't make a good mayor.
well,
I wouldn't vote for her.
Well, if you
but her ideas are good. I thought of them myself.
Yeah, if she were to run on that platform as compared to the platform I read from the other candidates, she's a mile ahead.
Well,
on
she
their
won't get a
platform.
vote.
Well,
people don't want honest government.
Well, of course there's no place for honesty in government.
No, honest people don't get elected.
That's
why I'm gonna run.
There you go. But anyhow, it would be interesting to see if a person, I guess it'd be interesting to see if a person could stay or stick to their ideas that get chewed up by the machine, wouldn't they?
You know, a lot of people don't like him, but I thought Lynn Lettner was more true to what he told you than anybody that actually tried to accomplish something. It cost him his job, too.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Whit Goins always told me the truth, and I always saw things the way I saw things. But he didn't go out there and stir up trouble.
No.
I mean, he did the right thing when the opportunity presented itself, but he didn't go out there and seek trouble. Lynn would go out and stir it up, and it cost him.
Yeah. Well, the working people out here are going to pay the price for it, and are now. We're paying it. And I've asked a question of certain people that are into the, I guess I don't know whether you call it a business or not, but information and like talk shows and whatever. Question I ask is, where is the point that people will say no, that they've paid all the tax that they can afford to pay or will they ever reach that point? If you look in the paper now, you have 2 or 3 pages or whatever properties that are to be sold due to the fact that taxes are sold for taxes.
Yeah.
And as taxes go higher, this list will go longer.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I saw an article or listened to a thing the other day that they would sell you a lot in Detroit for $1.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
No, but I know about the program.
That kind of tells you about, there's a hook in it.
You got to live there or something?
No. You have to pay another fee, which is $750 some, and this and that and all sorts of things, and then you start paying taxes on it again.
Yeah.
See? So if you own anything, now I don't know whether they can lien other property or not. It's possible.
Mm-hmm.
That may be where we're headed here in locally. Let's say you've got a piece of property and you refuse to pay tax on it, and the tax exceeds the value of the property. Then, do they have it would be a bill. It's possible that they could come back and bring action against you on other property that you own, like your bank account.
I can see that's happening. I mean, that happening. I don't know whether they can do it now or not, but it's what your argument's reasonable. I think they could make that argument and try it.
Well, it'd be classified as a bill,
Mm-hmm.
as a debt that you owe. And see, they do this on, let's say you have a car or a vehicle or a loan on it, and you
if it ain't worth what you owe on it, you still owe them.
You still owe them regardless. And it's a good possibility that this is being looked at.
Well, it's just like this. Property, real property, is not an asset anymore. It is a curse, really.
Well,
and the only property that has any safeguards at this time is intellectual property, because the people that make movies and write books and don't ever do nothing physical, don't ever understand the principles involved in hard work, they're the ones that are benefiting from creative rights, from intellectual property, and they're the ones that are doing most of the legislating and screaming loudest and getting the most attention. So they're out there to preserve intellectual property rights, but they know they're exempt from most regulations. They can use zoning and codes and EPA and stuff to their advantage, so they're not worried about what you're going to do to their mansion. They didn't got that figured out. But to own property right now is not the best way, in my opinion, to get rich, unless you can own a bunch of it.
And then it has to produce a certain amount of income. If you just hold property, I can guarantee you that it's not profitable. If you can't harvest something or put it to some type of use.
You just look at these land company properties back in the mountains. They gave it away to keep them having to try to keep up with it.
Well, what a lot of them have done, they've leased the surface rights off to the TWRA and stuff like that, and yet they'll hold the mineral rights.
In that way.
Now, mineral rights are a thing that we don't hear much about. If you buy a piece of property, a substantial amount, chances are the mineral rights are not with it at this point in time in this area.
Well, all the TVA property that was stole from the people and resold,
right, the mineral rights.
They kept some of the mineral rights. They kept all the uranium rights.
They kept all the uranium rights. They sure did. They absolutely did. And I don't know how this. Let's say you own a piece of property, or you have purchased a piece of property that does not have, that you didn't get the mineral rights. When the company that owns the mineral rights, or anyone they sell them to, decides to harvest those minerals, what about the if you have structures or whatever on the surface?
I've wondered about that too.
Do you get compensated?
I've wondered about that too.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. I'm sure that there's somebody out there that can tell us about it. I hear that the county commission is not going to bring up or discuss the budget until after the election. And my understanding is that this, according to the rules, is supposed to be taken care of by June the 30th. But yet they're going to
Go on a continuing resolution.
continuing resolution. Of course, now didn't the federal government go on a continuing resolution for about 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, I think we've been on one for the last 6 or 8 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're bringing up some interesting stuff there.
I just seen if anybody needs any batteries loaded.
Yeah. I hope it works out. But anyhow, this guy was talking about when we first came on, the soldier that's been released. There's a lot of talk going on as to what happened before he was captured or whatever. And the president is going to have some major explaining to do if this proves, if it doesn't go the way.
No, he's not going to do anything. Yeah, he's got it sewed up. They ain't. Harry Reid has done said that we need to close Gitmo. This is their first shot toward closing Gitmo. These guys they've got an agenda that they're going to make sure it gets done, and just the people be damned. Your opinion don't mean that no way.
There's something about Gitmo that I don't totally understand. That, excuse me, that piece of real estate, does it belong to the United States, or is it under lease from Cuba, or how is it that we hold that piece of property in another country?
I don't know where we own it or not, but I know that we retained it through the whole Cuban Missile Crisis and everything else.
Back whenever the president was dead set on trying these people in what I understand to be civil court, and I believe it was it New York that they was going to try them, and there was such an uproar raised that they backed off on that. There's something in there that I don't understand. That are they civilians or are they military?
Well, I don't know. You can hear arguments both ways.
Yeah.
I just know that if you think your opinion matters, you're crazy. If you think you can have any effect even on a local level as far as doing the right thing, you can forget it, because that ain't going to help either.
Well, I'd have to agree with you. The fact that no one is allowed to speak at a county commission meeting without clarification from the mayor I think has pretty well put a stop to anyone even attending, other than one or two very motivated or whatever sincere people. I know I don't waste my time going anymore. I don't see no point.
Well, that was the point of doing that too. They didn't want to fool with you. They want to go down there. They want to all get together and talk one at a time, figure out what they're going to do. And then they want to go down to the workshop and figure out when they're going to do it. And then they want to come in there and vote on it and go to the house.
I'm surprised, and I guess this should be brought up to some of the county commissioners and get one of them to make a proposal that no one be allowed at the meeting except by invitation only. First of all, you're not allowed to speak. Second, you can't hear what is said. They will not speak into the microphones to where you can hear what's said. So what is the point of being there if you're not allowed to speak and you can't hear what's going on? It makes there's no reason.
Well,
to do that.
I quit going because I don't ever know what's going on. I can't hear. They sit up further back to you and mumble. Ain't no use in me going. Ain't nothing I can contribute.
Yeah.
Certainly can't say anything now. So what's the use of being there? All I need to do is just send them a check once a year so they can pay their bills.
Do you? Well, let me put it this way: if one of the commissioners or the mayor himself would introduce this and put it up for a vote, it would not surprise me one bit if it would not that it would pass. That they're not allowed to be there only by invitation only at a meeting.
Well, I'm sure they would.
It wouldn't make any difference.
I'm sure they wouldn't. They could get it passed if they wanted to,
sure
but they won't vote for it. They won't. They can do it without insulting anybody. If they stand up for it, then they're on record having said, "Well, you can't come down there." So they just fix it so you don't want to come, and they don't have to vote.
Right. There's a lot of stuff that I think is misleading. From what I'm understanding, we're going to be about $1 million in the red.
How could that be? We've got that much down there in the financial department.
Well, if they meet, whatever. But I hear the discussion brought up on the highway department. From what I'm understanding, the highway department has never received revenue out of the general fund that I know of. Okay? They don't receive that. The highway department is funded by gasoline tax. Okay? Gasoline tax also funds a large percentage of anything done in the city of La Follette. The city will get a percentage if the sales, like is down here at the these get-goes that sell gas. The county will get a percentage and the city will get a percentage. Now, if you go, that brings up another thing. The all the truck stops and stuff up at the 141, they would be in the city of Caryville, wouldn't they?
Now what?
The truck stop up, all that stuff is in the city of Caryville. Okay, city of Caryville then is receiving the tax revenue off the gasoline or the diesel fuel. All these interstate trucks that are fueling up there, they receive a portion of it. Likewise, the highway department, the county highway department receives.
And the state.
Well, yeah, it's
It
the
comes
state.
from the state down.
Comes from the state down. And if I'm not mistaken, let me back up. There's also a federal tax on it.
Oh yeah.
There sure is, because
And that's how they control the states, is to say, we ain't going to send you no money unless you do this. And that's the way the state controls the county, and the way the county controls the road department.
Okay, when we get a load of fuel comes in, there's two taxes. There's a federal tax and a state tax. And the state then divvies up a certain amount, like I say, to the cities and the counties. And that's like the traffic lights, the sidewalks, all this stuff in the city is paid for out of this gas revenue. And if I'm not mistaken, when the city mows this medium down through here on the 4-lane, they get paid for that.
Yeah, I think so.
They sure do.
I don't know what makes any difference. I never would mow mine.
Well,
they come through here back about 25 years ago and made everybody take all the signs they had on their islands and made them take them down. And at that time, we had one of my little A-frame gas signs out there, and we had to move it.
Yeah.
And I've never cut a weed out there since, unless I was cutting it just because I wanted to cut something.
Yeah.
I've never done it. I've never attempted to keep it looking good out there. It's theirs. They can mow it. Now, until they started working out this deal where they're getting paid, it never did get mowed. And we had stick weeds and everything growing out here, but I wasn't going to mow their weeds.
Yeah. Well, when we talk revenue, there's lots of streams of revenue that come into the county that we never hear about. And now we're beginning to hear about the coal severance tax, but coal didn't just go away this year.
Well, the thing about it is, we had a promise from the guy that's president back in 2006 that he's going to put the coal business out.
That's correct.
I could see that coming.
Yeah.
Why could these people that we're paying big money not figure it out too and plan ahead?
Well, you know, I believe if I were in the coal business and I was financially able, I believe I would shut down and said the heck with it. I'd have cut my equipment up.
Well, you remember that guy down there? He was down there at some sort of
it.
environmental meeting down in Georgia, I believe it was, or Alabama. And he was preparing to open this mining operation and going to employ like 50 or 60 people. And he's in there, and these people are all in there belly aching. We don't want no dust. We don't want none of this. And he just said, well, look, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm not going to open it. I'm going home. I've got my living made. You people don't need the jobs. You don't need the work. You don't need the energy. I'm going home. And he left and didn't do it.
Right. Yeah. If everybody that was in the coal business decided that they were just going to shut down, let's say that they could shut down for 6 months. That would put this country in a tailspin like you would not believe. Most of your coal-fired plants, I would say, hold about a 90-day supply at the most. And if the coal operators, well, let me back up and say this. If the president says he's going to put them out of business anyhow, what's the difference of whether you go out now or they whittle you down little by little to where you're eventually going to be out of business anyhow? So why not take your aprons, take what you got, and get out while you can?
Well, now, I don't know why anybody would want to open one up. If you've got the money to open it, you don't need to open it.
I'll tell you what.
It's like a gas station. If you've got the money to open a gas station, you don't need to open a gas station.
Yeah. Unless you get them diesel rebates. Yeah, but anyhow.
The governor will cheat you out of them. Let me tell people for a minute. 562-9370 if you need to ride an ambulance, because Vital Care are not government funded. They work for a living. They do what they have to do to please the people and do a good job. They're locally owned, and if we had the whole county set up running like that runs, we wouldn't be in here, wouldn't have near as much to talk about. 562-9370, Vital Care, been in business for altogether for 30, 40 years. I mean, the manager's been in that business that long. The guy that owns it. Vital Care itself's been there for about 6 or 7 years and doing a great job. 562-9370, and also Digger down here at in Sawmill Holler. He's got his summer propane in, several different flavors of grilled gas. If you want to add a little charm to your neighborhood, you can burn some out there. Some out there, good. Yeah, some out there mesquite propane. It just smells good everywhere. You don't remember the phone number down at Digger, do you?
I believe it's something about 5625, and then it had 444.
It ain't 5444.
I believe it is 5444, 562.
I thought it was 562-5444, but Digger says it's 562-5444. So give Digger a call and go down the middle of the road and watch the cars go by and get you some propane.
Do you reckon they'll outlaw that eventually?
Well, you know, it's hard for an independent man to be in business and anything. I'm surprised he's even down there. They just ain't figured out how to put him out yet. And another thing it is, he ain't doing it for a living. He's doing it for sport. He'd starve to death trying to make a living if he had to go down there and open the place up and go through all of the regulations and jump through the hoops and not be grandfather on anything. As old as he is, he wouldn't make a penny the rest of his life. He'd live be 90 and he wouldn't break even.
Yeah. You know, I hear the discussion come up from these politicians constantly about business. No. Let me back this up. They don't say business. They say jobs.
That's right.
They don't. They say jobs.
They want to put businesses out, and they don't know where the jobs come from.
That's another question I've asked. These politicians, why don't they go into business? We've got 100 of them right here or no more than 100 that's going to want to hold these offices down here.
I want you to show me which one that's running anywhere that's not lived off the government in one way or another all his life, or at least all his working or adult life, and that's the guy I really consider voting for. But you find me one of them.
I don't see people. The people that I see, like you say, they're either directly or indirectly employed or consuming from the government. I'm not going to say employed, but
if you're not sucking off the government for a living, you ain't got time to do it. You ain't got time to run. You don't want to fool with you. You're too busy trying to make a living.
If I go back so many years back, I was putting in about 16, 18 hours a day. I was driving illegal, everything under the sun to try to make a living and try to get ahead is what I thought was getting ahead. That was before I was aware of the fact that you do not own property. That kind of come to me later after I had time to slow down and think a little bit.
Well, I come to realize that this day and age, property is a burden.
Oh, you know, you and I discussed this a long time ago. Who that we could think of that the government had less control over. Now, anything that you own, any asset that you think you hold, and I'll do away with that word own. I think that ought to be taken out of the dictionary as an archaic word, because there's very little that we own anymore.
You remember who I told you the only free people were, don't you?
Well, the guy living up here under the bridge is who it is. The government cannot. Well, they'll still have some effect on them, but they have least effect on a person that has nothing.
If they're in good health,
yeah.
If they're in good health, they're the only free people in the country.
Right.
If they're sick, then and they're not stubborn enough to just tough it out, then the government's got them too.
Well, you take yourself or anyone else out here that's doing anything or trying to do anything, the county, and you know, you and I, we become interested, or you got me interested in this, when the city had passed the property maintenance law, international property maintenance law code. They had voted 2 times. They was coming up on final vote, and this thing was a nightmare. And this, like our county commission down here, the city had not read the thing. They didn't have a copy of it, hadn't read it. They're going to vote in a code that they haven't read.
Well, have you noticed that 20 years ago you could stir people up to do something? Even 10 years ago you could stir people up to do something. But it's so hard to get anybody interested in standing up for their rights now. And the reason is the old generation that remembers freedom are all dying out or just give up. And the people that really could make a difference now are not. They don't have any memory of when they did have some freedom. They've been trained. They've been housebroke.
Goes back to what's called the American dream. And there's not anyone that can give you a good definition of what the American dream is anymore. I thought at one time there was such a thing, and I worked toward it. I done a little bit of everything. I thought that at one time, I even thought that you would own property. And I think that was one of my motivations. Now, I heard one of the people who's running for sessions judge the other night, and I think that it's what you call high ideas, but truancy was one of the major topics that this person discussed. And I thought about that, and I thought about that. You know, truancy is not the objective that we're looking for. The objective that they're looking for is to educate people. And when I say educate, I'm talking about everybody needs to be educated. But the way they're talking about educating them is to be sure that they're in school. You can take and handcuff them, hog tie them, chain gang them, and put them in the classroom. But you're not going to make them get educated just because you put them there. You have got to be able to motivate people to want to learn.
You do, but what we've got now, our motivation, our end result of schooling is to make good citizens. And what we mean by good citizens are those people who don't rock the boat, work, and pay taxes.
Is that all there is to it? Work and pay taxes?
Well, they don't really care whether you pay taxes as long as you vote right.
Well,
You got another minute, Mr. Henson. If you got to round up something, just have at it.
yeah, I think I've kind of expunged upon philosophy and whatever else. I don't believe, well, I can't become optimistic about a lot of things whenever we're in the situation we're in, and I'm talking about from the president all the way down to whoever our elected officials are going to be. I feel that the only thing that's going to change here locally is that little piece of wood up there in front on them where they're sitting in them big aircraft chairs. The name on there is the only thing that's going to change.
Well, you know, most people, I'm going to say 99% of the people in Jacksboro don't understand the grand scheme. They understand the arguments on one side or another of a particular something, but they don't back up and look at the overall effect. And I don't think you can find anybody to run that's worth having, just to tell you the truth.
Well, I'd have to agree.
And I
with
guess
you.
I've made enough people mad. Thank you, folks. We'll be on the radio. 1450 WLAF will be back here on UG TV and on the radio side of WLAF website. We'll have all that going Saturday at 4 o'clock, ain't it? I never can.
4 o'clock. Yeah.
4 o'clock.
Right.
4 o'clock.
Yeah, 4, yeah.
Thank you, folks.